Hello, amazing financiers. Welcome to the session on the sustainability checklist. In this session, I'm going to cover what is sustainability in the context of AIESEC's finance standards. I will not be covering how you actually make sure that you achieve all those checklist items. This is for you to get the knowledge on what you need to achieve in order to become sustainable. And then there's other sessions, sessions tomorrow as well, that can actually help you. How do you get there, and what are the different things that you need to change in your processes in able to ensure sustainability. So I am your FASI of today. My name is Roland. I'm the Global Finance Manager for AIESEC International 1819. If you have any questions related to sustainability, finance, whatever, you can reach out to me in the contact details that you will find in this slide. Moving forward to the agenda. So as I said, first of all, I'm going to cover what does sustainability mean in the context of AIESEC's finance standards. Then actually explaining, okay, we had the checklist items in the 17-18 term. We changed them for the 18-19 term. Why did we change them? Then I will be going into what is this new checklist for 18-19? What are right now the things that you need to implement in order to be sustainable? And at the end of the session, we'll have a question and answer. So you can ask me any questions about the checklist, about sustainability. And again, if you watch this webinar later, you can always reach out to me in the contact details that you saw in the slide right before this. So I also invite you to ask me questions there. Amazing. So moving into what is sustainability. It's a very broad topic, and I just put two sort of quotes here that define sustainability. So it's development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And there's also sustainability is managing the triple bottom line. And what is the triple bottom line? It's a process by which manage their financial, social, and environmental risks, obligations, and opportunities. These three impacts are sometimes referred to profits, people, and planet. So these are very vague descriptions, and I understand that if I just give you this, and if I say this is what sustainability means, it's not possible for us to actually implement sustainability on an LC or on an MC level. So hence we created a checklist in order to say, okay, if you implement these things, you are sustainable as an organization. However, this is the checklist item for the 17-18 term. And after the term, we started realizing that there were still some entities that were completing these items, but still there were issues that they were facing that were not being covered, or there were opportunities that we could still exploit in the finance standards that were not being covered. Hence, we decided at the start of this term to change the sustainability checklist items. Some of them we removed, some of them we clustered, and some of them we added on. So I'm going to go into the new sustainability checklist item, explaining the new items, explaining the old items, so you get an understanding of, okay, what are the things that I need to get to in order to become sustainable as an LC or as an MC. So without further ado, I'm going to show you the new checklist items. So here you will see all the items, and step by step I will go into them and actually give a better explanation so you can have a better understanding of what do they mean. So the first thing that happened was that we started making substandards in the sustainability standard. We realized that there were so many checklist items, so many different things that need to be achieved, and some of these things were not per se related. So hence we started saying, okay, there's not just sustainability, there's actually 5 different types of sustainability that we see. There's entity sustainability, so how sustainable is your LC and your MC and as a whole. There's product sustainability, how sustainable are your products. There's HR sustainability, so if we talk about pipelining, if we talk about LCVP's finance, if we talk about manual functions. Then there's other financial sustainability indicators, so these were the ratios that were not be able to put anywhere else. So think of liquidity, think of months of financial reserves. And then lastly, we have risk management sustainability, which is about having a risk assessment tool in place and a risk log in place for your entity. Going into entity sustainability first, we have MC sustainability, LC sustainability, and entity sustainability. For MC and LC, I will dive deeper, but for entity sustainability, I will already explain that for level 0, it simply means that your entity is in loss. The costs are higher than the revenue. For level 1, it means that consolidated, when you add up the MC and all the different LCs, the entity is running in a surplus. And for level 2, it means that the criteria of MC sustainability level 2 and LC sustainability level 2 needs to be met. And now actually going into LC and MC sustainability a bit deeper. First, we have LC sustainability and level 0. This means that the exchange costs are higher than the exchange income. So you are losing money for every single exchange that you are doing. Then there's LC sustainability level 2, which means that the exchange income is higher than the exchange. So exchange is self-sustainable, but still, as you see, there are other costs that also need to be covered. Hence, the LC also needs to do other activities such as sales, fundraising, PD, whatever, in order to cover all their costs, not to run in a loss. Then finally, there's LC sustainability level 2, which means that the exchange income is higher than the total cost. So the exchange income can actually cover all the costs that an LC has, and they can stop doing other activities, and they can start making sure that every single member in their LC is focusing on exchange instead of fundraisers, sales, or whatever. So a question for you, and if you want to look into your LC sustainability and make sure that you get to LC sustainability level 2, these are just some questions for you to think about and also discuss in your LC. And this is about, does your LC still need to do a lot of different activities? Selling shirts for in your conferences, organizing events on your campus, getting sponsorship from companies in the region, just to continue doing exchanges. Is doing exchanges not enough for your LC to be sustainable? And then a question for MC is, do you know which of your LCs are the ones making a loss year after year? Or do you know which of your LCs are the ones that are heavily dependent on other income than exchange? And does your entity consider any type of consequence if the entity makes a loss? And in here, you have to think about your financial model. How does your financial model look into LC sustainability? Is there a penalty or a higher fee that an LC has to pay when they have a lot of other income? Or is there a way that you make sure that if an LC runs a loss every single year, that there's a payment plan, if there's a plan for them to actually start going in surplus again? So these are questions I suggest you to have within your LC or within your MC if you see that LC sustainability is a large issue for you. And for MC sustainability. Here we have a little girl in level 0 MC sustainability, and this very simply means that the total cost, everything that the MC is doing, is higher than the income they can bring. And this is including exchange income, PD income, LC affiliations fee, whatever. And then we actually have MC sustainability level 1. This is very simply that the income is higher than the total cost. However, as you see, if you have the LC affiliation fee and the exchange income, this is still not enough to cover for the cost. They still need to run PD in order to make sure that they are sustainable. Then we actually have level 2 sustainability, where we see that exchange income and the LC affiliation fee, so the ones that are purely based on our core product, exchange, are enough to cover for the total cost. And this is the ideal for 70% of the cost. Apologies. So this actually means that your MC can make sure that they can mostly focus on exchange, and even though we realize that MCs sometimes still need to do some PD in order to be sustainable, at least largely they can count on exchange and LC affiliation fee to cover for their costs. So questions here is, do you actively track your budget execution to make sure that the MC is getting more money than the money spent? And do you know the percentage of your different sources of income? And then do you know how much of these percentages are from conferences? How much of these percentages are sponsorships? How much are PD? Do you actually know how close you are to making sure that 70% of your cost is being covered by your exchange revenues? And then going into product sustainability, for all the products, it's basically the same. Your revenue of the product needs to be higher than the direct and indirect costs in order to get to level 2. And I will again explain it a bit more in detail. So we have some fruits here that represent the different products that we are running, and we will talk about IGE just to have the example to explain to you what is level 0, what is level 1, and what is level 2. For level 0, it's very simply that the total income that IGE raises as an entity, so LC, expansions, MC combined, is lower than the total cost for IGE. So every single IGE that is being run, make sure that there's a loss. And then there's level 1, where you see that the product income is higher than the product costs. And the product costs are only the direct costs. So when you consolidate all your IGE incomes, they are greater than the IGE costs. But this is still not talking about the indirect costs. So if we talk about level 2, this is making sure that the income of IGE can also cover the entity's indirect costs, like office costs, like team days, like conferences, these type of things. So in level 2, when you consolidate all your IGE incomes, they are higher than the IGE costs and a part that is allocated to the entity's indirect costs. So questions if you are struggling with your product profitability and how to dive into this is, do you know how much the indirect costs are that you are charging? And do you know if these indirect costs are being reflected in your pricing as well? So does your pricing of your product make sure that not only the direct costs are being covered, but there's also a margin that can cover for the indirect costs? Because often pricing is only being done to cover for the cost that the product runs naturally, like the standards that we deliver, but there's also things like the office of the MC that needs to be covered, or the office of the LCs even, that need to be covered by the products that we are running. So then talking about HR sustainability. This is ensuring that there's pipeline, so ensuring that there's an LCVP finance that doesn't share another role, and that there's an MCVP finance that doesn't share another role, and that all the LCVP finances and MCVP's finance fulfill the team standards if they have a team. Then also we need to make sure that there's an education cycle for the LCVPs, because if we want our LCVP's finance to perform, they need the proper knowledge. So we need a manual of function, and we need to make sure that there's an education timeline as well. There's coaching for the LCVPs. This can be done by an MC finance or a national support team, and that when needed, there are visits and audits happening. So then talking about the other sustainability indicators, we firstly have months of financial reserves. So this is very simply how long can you survive as an entity without having any revenues, but still operating, so having your costs. So it is your current equity divided by the average cost of the 12 previous months. And then the ideal state here is to have around 6 to 8 months of financial reserves, and over 8 months of financial reserves, it's unnecessary if it doesn't have a purpose. What I mean, when it doesn't have a purpose, let's say that your entity wants to buy an office. Then of course you need to make sure that you are building way more reserves to at some point be able to buy that office. But if you have no purpose and you are running with 15 months of financial reserves, this means that these reserves can also be used to boost your exchange performance and to make smart investments. Then there's two liquidity ratios. Firstly, there's very simply cash divided by short-term liabilities that needs to be higher or equal than 1. And then there's current assets divided by current liabilities, where the ideal ratio lies between 1.5 and 3. Then going into core performance for LCs and MCs, we need to make sure that as exchange is our core product, that our main income actually comes from our core product. So what this means is that exchange income should be more than 70% of the total income. This should be the case for LCs, and this should be the case for MC. So it shouldn't be the case that for the entity overall where LC and MCs can cover for each other. No, for every single one of the LCs and for the MC individually as well, they need to make sure that exchange income is more than 70% of the total income. Lastly, the debt ratio. You need to make sure that your total liabilities divided by the total assets is under 0.5. Because if you have it under 0.5, most of your organization's assets are financed through equity rather than through debt. Going into the last two sustainability indicators. This is direct cost divided by total costs. And for direct costs divided by total costs, right now there is not an ideal ratio that we are running as AIESEC. Because at this point, globally, we have 27% of the costs are indirect costs. However, the industry benchmark for non-for-profit organizations is 65%. So we're still looking into what should the ideal ratio be for AIESEC. And should this be the same as the industry benchmark, or because of our way of operating, should it be different? But in order to scale up our operations, we need to make sure that we invest our financial resources into it. So we need to invest our money into products and not just into conferences, into office, into all of that. We need to make sure that a significant amount of our money goes into our products. Then lastly, it's about conferences being sustainable. So making sure that your national and your local conference don't generate a loss. Because again, they are not your product. They are something when you come together to actually talk about the strategy and the way forward. And this should not be something that you're actually losing money on. And you need to make sure that your conference revenues don't depend on sales. So this means that the people that come to your conferences should actually pay for what they are getting. Then about risk management sustainability, you need to assess and you need to manage the risks. So you need a framework or a tool where risks are identified. And actually there was a session on this as well about the risk assessment tool and about the risk logs and how you can use this. So if you are still unclear about the risk assessment and management, I also invite you to go back and to actually watch that session. So that was the last checklist item for sustainability. And then going into the current state, so what is the percentage globally on average that entities have implemented the sustainability standard? Overall, it's 61.9%, with Americas being the highest region at 66.03%, and MEA being the region with the lowest implementation at 57.24%. Talking about GCPs of entities and how you can learn from different entities, I would like to invite you to go to the MCVP Finance Tracker. If you're an LCVP Finance and you're not sure what this is, reach out to your MCVP because they will have the link for you. Because in here you have different tabs that can actually show you what are items that my entity is not completing, that other entities are completing. Or if I'm struggling with IGV sustainability, what are entities that are actually having IGV sustainability level 2. So if you want GCPs from other entities, make sure to go to the MCVP Finance Tracker, figure first out what are your bottlenecks, what are your struggles, and then look what are entities that are actually doing that already and how can I reach out to them and then how can I learn from them. So my final message about sustainability is that financial sustainability is not a one-day project. All of these checklist items, entity sustainability, product profitability, is not something that you can do in one day. It's not something that if you change the way of operating today, that tomorrow IGV is sustainable and tomorrow your LC and tomorrow your entity is sustainable. No, because it's not this one-day project, it needs to be a focus every single day. Every single day in your actions and your decisions, you need to be thinking about what is my current state of sustainability and how do I move forward to get to the sustainability that is desired and for me to actually move on and keep having my operations. So that was it from my side. Now I would love if you have any questions to reach out to me. Again, if you see this webinar at a later point than it was live, then just shoot me a message through email and I will also be glad to help you out there. Again, these are my my contact details. It's rolandg@ai.isec.org and my phone number is also there if you prefer to reach out to me in WhatsApp. And that was it for this session. I want to thank you a lot and I want to wish you good luck in implementing the sustainability checklist items for your entity. Tomorrow there's going to be sessions as well separately for the products GVGEGT. So I invite you to go there to learn as well from Ram, the GFB chair, who's going to be talking about those products and how to make sure those products are sustainable. And good luck, and if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always here to help you and here to make sure that every single one of the entities is sustainable. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.